Today's show is brought to you by ThriveFantasy.com. It's DFS for prop bets. Visit ThriveFantasy.com or download the app for iOS or Android. Use our promo code Armchair and get an instant match up to $50. Choose your 10 favorite props to build your best lineup and compete against the rest of the field for cash prizes. Again, sign up today at ThriveFantasy.com or get the app for iOS or Android and use promo code Armchair. What's going on, guys? It is our second show of 2021. And we got a good one tonight. We have a great guest coming on. It's his first time on the show tonight. So hold tight, and we'll be with you in 1 minute.
Fantasy football, you dealing with the best. Keep it hype, authentic. This ain't nothing like the rest. With the Armchair Fantasy Show podcast, give advice for all the listeners to improve your stats. Yeah, we live on goingfor2.com. Tuesdays and Fridays, this is what you want. Talking dynasties and daily drafts, and we just getting started. That ain't even the half. Yeah, so go ahead, tell your friends to join. Going for two, cause no one remembers the extra point. Hey, goingfor2.com, the Armchair Fantasy Show.
All right, welcome to episode 191 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. We are here during the off season every other Wednesday right now, and we are, of course, coming to you live from Periscope, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I'm a little bit messed up tonight. I'm a little bit out of practice. It's been a while. But we're also streaming in the Going For Two app for iOS and Android, and of course streaming in all major podcast networks as well. I'm here with my co-host Ryan Searfoss. Ryan, what's up, man?
Oh, not too much. It's officially draft season now. The NFL playoffs are over, so we're in draft season. I'm excited for it, and starting to buckle down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And like I mentioned, we got a great guest tonight. His first time on the show. His podcast is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. Micheal Cipes of the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at FFBlitz. Micheal, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me. Oh, and thanks for saying it's one of your favorite podcasts. We have a lot of fun doing it, you know.
Yep, definitely. And just to say, I'm not just saying that because, Spotify at the end of the year, they put out like your favorite music and your favorite podcast. And my podcast, as far as my listening, was number one, of course, because I listen to myself to kind of critique myself. But yours is number two. Yours is right below my own podcast. So, I mean, I do listen to y'all quite a bit. As of recently, I haven't because I haven't been commuting to work every day. But I definitely check y'all out quite often. I actually had Shane on the show about a couple months ago as well, too. So really enjoy your show, definitely.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I think for all of us, with COVID and with the way the world is, it kind of made it so a lot of people didn't get to listen to podcasts as much. However, it was a boom of everybody making podcasts.
Exactly.
There's so many people home, so they're all making them now instead of listening to them as much.
Yep, exactly. So go ahead and give us a little bit of a rundown of you, kind of your footprint in the fantasy industry, and then tell us about your show as well.
Well, let's see. I've done podcasts now for about 5 years, and with Dynasty Trades HQ, we just started our fourth year of doing it. So we're entered our fourth year. We're at episode 160 something right now. Nice. So it's been a lot of fun. They make fun of me all the time. You've heard about being old, but I've been playing fantasy football since the early 90s with my college buddies and stuff. And then about 8 years ago, I was on a plane and I read in a fantasy football magazine, which is how we used to do it. Yep. And I read about dynasty football, and I just thought that was so much better than playing redraft. And you get to keep your players and you get to do all this stuff. So we made a dynasty league about 8 years ago, I guess. And then 5 years ago, I started hanging out on Twitter, and I met Shane and some other people, and I worked for the website for a while. And then they kind of threw a bunch of people together to make a show, and they put me and Shane's the worst, Shane Manila, and Jeremy Browen at Dynasty Madman. They put the three of us together and said, hey, let's do this. And 4 years later, we're the only ones left, really, from all those podcasts they put together. And we have a lot of fun on there. So, and that was the whole point. When we did it, we said we didn't want to be like stats and just just talk about football. We wanted to have fun, and we wanted people to have fun when they came on the show. And, you know, we've lasted this long, and everybody always seems to say they have a lot of fun. So
yeah,
that was our goal.
And that comes across in the podcast, too, because you're right. I mean, a lot of times it's like you almost turn the mic on and y'all are just a couple guys hanging out, just shooting the shit. And that's kind of what it comes across as. So it's kind of why I like it, because it's not all about stats and, you know, and nailing down the biggest, who can get the best stat and trying to top the next guy. It's just, you know, a couple guys hanging out talking fantasy. It's pretty good. I like it.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into the news and notes.
News and notes from around the league.
News and notes, as always, is brought to you by the Original Craft Beer Club. Get 12 beers delivered to your house every month, up to 12 beers. Sign up at goingfor2.com/getbeer. Get free shipping, up to 3 free gifts. Again, that's goingfor2.com/getbeer and claim your free gifts. The first note on here, I'm going to go to you, Ryan. We haven't heard from you in a little while. Your boy, Mark Ingram, I know you're a Ravens fan. We kind of thought this was going to happen anyway, but, I mean, they didn't waste no time whatsoever. I mean, before the game even got played this past weekend, they were talking about cutting him. So what are your thoughts on Mark Ingram and where he might end up?
Man, I'm going to start Mark Ingram. He didn't have a role there anymore, but he's a great leader on the team. And love Mark Ingram, like, just as a player. I think he goes somewhere where he can have a nice committee role where you see him, I always say the LeGarrette Blount role, like the short yardage back, kind of grind out a little bit, and good, like maybe mix with a younger back to kind of work with them. I know we have new coaching in Detroit, so that's the one I'd normally go to for that. But I said, if he's not really a fantasy relevant guy for me now, but if somebody goes down where he lands, yes.
Yeah, I was asking Michael with Mark Ingram. So pretty much wherever he lands right now, if you're an owner of the running back on that team, you're probably pissed, right? I mean, he's probably going to come in and steal some goal line carries. He's going to, you know, be just enough of an annoyance to bother you from your top 10, top 12 running back that you got. Is that right, Michael?
Well, I mean, we talk about it on our show all the time. I think all these running backs do that. You know, it doesn't really matter anymore. It's not like it was 10, 15 years ago where every team had their one main running back. You know, they all have these guys. And whether it's a Mark Ingram or, you know, look, the Browns have Kareem Hunt and Chubb. And then we always say, by the time you get to week 15, 16, you've got the third and fourth string running back stealing your touchdowns.
Good point.
You know, this year with COVID, it was a lot different. We had it in week 4 or week 3, you know. But I don't know. I don't think I would be too concerned if you did have like one of those stud running backs. If he came over to the team, it would just be another guy. They're all that way. Even Kamara. Kamara is awesome. And then you've got Latavius Murray coming in there and playing, you know. So I don't know that I'd be really that concerned if he came to your team to be worried about your stud running back if you had one there, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, good running backs now get 60% of the market share. Like, if I get a running back, he gets 60% of the snaps, I'm ecstatic.
Yep.
Like, I consider him a stud. The every down back is kind of dead.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because Michael, you had mentioned that you've been playing since the early 90s. I'm usually the old guy on the show. I've been playing since the late 90s. And you're right, back then, I mean, it was every team had their stud running back, and you hated the RBBC, you know, the running back by committee, of course. And nowadays, it's like every team has that. It's almost like the mainstay in the NFL right now. If you don't have it, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always funny when you say that, because that was back in the day with the pen and the paper and the newspaper and all that stuff, you know.
Yep.
But we definitely had our stud running backs that you put them in and you didn't have to worry about anybody else.
Yep, exactly. All right, another one going to the quarterbacks here, Ryan. Phillip Rivers announces that he will actually retire. Looks like Michael's a little upset about that one. So I'm talking about some of the pieces there for the Colts. What does that do for that offense? You know, we don't know who's going to be there yet, who's going to take over that quarterback spot. But I mean, you got Jonathan Taylor, you got T.Y. Hilton, still got some life left. You got the rookie there, Pittman. What are you doing with those guys if you own some of those guys in Dynasty?
I mean, Jonathan Taylor, I'm really happy about it. I think whether it gets better or worse, it's going to help him either way. If the quarterback situation gets better, the offense moves better, they score more points, he gets more red zone carries. If they get a young quarterback in there, or if, you know, they promote Jacob Eason, which I want to see, they're going to lean on their running back. I think it's a plus for him. Michael Pittman, it's going to be a wait and see who the quarterback is. Because if we see maybe Stafford go somewhere, there's been crazy talks about Matt Ryan getting cut. Like, if you see something like that happen and they get an opportunity to get him, it's wheels up for the receivers. And somebody like Pittman gives them that red zone threat. But it's a wait and see there. I mean, I'd buy him now and take the lottery ticket before we find out who's quarterback there.
Yeah, good point.
The worst case scenario, it's a year wait till he grows with somebody.
Yep, good point. So, Michael, you seem a little bit upset about Phillip Rivers retiring there. And then I wanted to ask you, Carson Wentz has been kind of mentioned as the possibility of replacement there. What do you think of that move?
Well, first of all, the reason I cried when you said Priv, and that's what I've been calling him forever. He's always been one of my favorite guys. I love watching him because he just always is having so much fun out there. The enthusiasm and the excitement he has, and just him talking about football. It's so much fun listening to him talk. And we always call him Priv. I've been doing that for a million years. The coolest thing was I actually had tweets and texts today from listeners and also from my friends that said, "Hey, Priv retired." And just to see somebody write Priv on my phone, I always thought it was really cool.
That's awesome.
So I was not. I mean, I expected it, but it's just sad because I really like him. And one thing, Ryan, you mentioned Jacob Eason. He was a guy that I ended up drafting and getting like in late rounds of all these rookie drafts. And I did it mostly because I like Priv and I wasn't sure what was going to happen with him. And then the way things happen with these quarterbacks, you get that guy that maybe he might play. And I know you just mentioned him. Do you think he has any chance of playing? I mean, because they didn't really ever show him anywhere. Do you think he has any chance of playing, or is it more likely they're going to trade for or sign somebody?
I mean, it's if they get somebody. I mean, there's a lot that can happen from them. I'd love to see him get it, but I mean, if they get a rookie quarterback, he'll get reps. Like, they have a late enough pick where they're gonna get at best Kyle Trask or Mac Jones, who has just as many question marks and not a year in the offense. So he could get a legit shot there. Unless, like, Stafford, Matt Ryan, I don't know who else is younger. Like, is there anyone we'd want to see start quarterback there?
Well, I guess if you go back to his question, he asked me what I thought about Wentz, and it's funny because
I've been so this contract just doesn't make sense.
The contract. I mean, look, we talk about Wentz on our show all the time because of Shane. Shane, up until this past year, was a huge Eagles fan, and then he had some personal problems with the way they handled some of the situations in the offseason, and then he tried to say he's not a fan of the team anymore. But he kind of still follows it. But he's always been a Wentz truther, that Wentz is the greatest, and he's finally given up on that. And we talked about that. Actually, we did our show last night, and he was talking about where he would like to see Wentz go. And Shane actually said he would like to see Wentz go to the Colts. That was one of the things he said on the show. I don't know. I really don't. It's kind of like what Ryan said.
Yeah, it's a great landing spot for any quarterback.
It is.
I mean, he comes in with a great offensive line, great young runner. Receivers aren't overly talented, but they're talented enough. Like, it's a really good situation, and if you can stay upright, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
But like Jeff says, the contract though.
That's why I didn't even mention him.
It's not good.
40 in dead money this year, 20 in next year after.
Yeah, the only way it could work is if the Eagles agree to pay part of it. I think we kind of saw that with Brock Osweiler a few years ago, where they basically traded him and they ate some of the contracts so that they can at least get rid of him off their books, and that could be something that they can do with Carson Wentz possibly.
But what's Brock? They really just wanted Brock out the door. That's why they were willing to pay. Do they really want Wentz out the door that bad?
And are they going to have to give somebody a draft pick to eat that money?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is absurd because he still could be a franchise quarterback.
Yep.
Like, the talent's there. He's had a really rough go and maybe an unfair thing.
Yep.
I mean, he's had no receivers. His line was devastated.
Do either you two guys play salary cap leagues, contract salary cap leagues?
Not anymore. I have in the past, but I kind of, when I started getting too many leagues, it got to be too hectic to try to manage that, so I dropped it. But I've done it in the past.
Because that's the kind of move you do, Hey, I'll throw you a third-round pick if you take this guy off my roster
exactly.
and eat the contract,
Exactly. All right, let's stick with the quarterbacks that have huge contracts and are looking to get out. Deshaun Watson also was another one that's looking to get out of Houston. Just kind of what's your latest thoughts on this one, Michael? What are your thoughts on Deshaun Watson not being in Houston this year, and where might he end up?
Well, again, like I said, we talked about this on our show because part of the big conversation was that he might come down here to South Florida. There was all those rumors that, Dolphins will move on from Tua and trade like Tua and one of their firsts over to Houston to get Watson. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't really know that anything's going to happen. There's a lot of times when these guys cry and don't want to be here and all that kind of stuff. But we're now in that dead period where there's going to be all these months of nothing really happening. And, maybe they'll kiss and make up and figure it all out or convince him that, hey, you don't want to go anywhere. To me, it seems as though he's not going to go anywhere. A lot of times they do all this talking just to try to get at something to happen. And then a lot of times it doesn't happen. And then all of a sudden everything's fine. And for me, that's kind of how I feel. I don't think he's going to really go anywhere. Good point. Do you agree, Ryan? I saw your face. I don't know.
I think the situation's bad. I think it's who they hire the head coach. Like, if they get somebody he likes, I think he'll be okay with it. I've seen a few rumors, and that's what I was trying to get. Like, that's where it is. I keep seeing the Jets pop up, and they have the firepower to do it.
Yeah.
One of the trades, Daniel Jeremiah posted this one. It was 2nd overall, 23rd overall, and then 1st and 22 and 23, because they still have a second this year, 2/3 this year, and they'll have the seconds after that. And they have $77 million in cap space, and then you trade Darnold and recoup a second.
So that's definitely a possibility.
Wait, so Daniel Jeremiah is saying that they would give the 2nd overall over to Houston, so then Houston would have to use that pick to get a quarterback then, because if they're not getting a quarterback in the deal, they need to get a quarterback.
Right, so they're getting the quarterback, the 2nd pick in the 2nd round, and then first the next 2 years. And I've also seen one with Quinnen Williams involved too. Very similar to that.
Yeah, the rumors are crazy right now around him. I mean, I'm a Niners fan, and I've heard the rumors about him coming to us, and I don't see how we can do it without including Bosa, and apparently Bosa's off the table. Which is fine with me. I want to keep Bosa.
I was going to say he should be.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not many players I'd keep off the table when it came to Deshaun Watson.
Yeah,
because I'm a firm believer he's a top 5 quarterback.
Yep.
But those is so good.
Yeah, and I tell you right now, like, how much does it suck right now to be a Houston fan in general? I mean, you lost D-Hop last year. You just lost James Harden. You're probably going to end up losing Deshaun Watson. Like, everyone just wants out of Houston right now. It's not a good thing to be there right now. All right, let's move.
Down here in Miami,
go ahead.
Which is that.
And down here in Miami, we have their 1st and 2nd round pick too.
Yeah, That's right.
Yeah, they've been so poorly ran for so long.
Yeah,
that might be the worst coaching job in football right now.
Yeah, I think it is, because I mean, you go to there, like, what do you have really, especially if Watson ends up leaving? Like, what do you really have to work with there? You don't have draft picks to build a team. You don't have any talent. It's a tough situation right now. I definitely wouldn't want to be that coaching job there.
James Harden took a $13 million tax cut, or has paid $13 million taxes extra just to go to New York.
Just to get out.
It must be bad that now.
Yeah,
but what would happen with JJ? Would JJ still stick it out?
That's a good question. That's a good question, because I mean,
every fan who calls in this Pittsburgh radio thinks he's coming to the Steelers, but that's local. That's local sports right there.
Oh yeah, I didn't explain Ryan's background, Michael. You're probably confused. I mentioned that he's a Ravens fan and he's got this Pittsburgh Steeler man cave there. He lost a bet, basically. We did a pick 'em and he lost, so I got to pick his background. So that's why he's rocking the Steelers right now.
It's the last episode. Just stop being used on the war room.
Hey,
oh my God, that's awesome.
All right, we got one last topic, and it's a big one too, because I know a lot of us that play Dynasty get excited for this time of year, and it's the combine. They're not going to have an official combine. They're going to be some kind of hybrid virtual / pro day thing. First, Michael, I'll go to you. How much are you into the combine when it actually is a thing, and how disappointed are you that it's not going to be happening this year?
COVID last year made us all look at everything differently. I work with my brother who's an actor, and I travel with him to do signings and go to shows and stuff. And we lost I don't even know, I think 25 conventions in 2020.
Wow.
So we couldn't do it. So part of that is in between doing the conventions with him, I was going to some of these events. I went to the draft. We were going to try to go to not the combine. We were going to try to go to the Senior Bowl, and then we were going to try to go to whatever things we could go to. But the combine has always been one of those kind of things where I like to watch it. You have it on when you're doing some other things. But to me, it was always more valuable to me afterwards when people are cutting it all up and showing you the things you need to see. You know?
Yep.
But as far as how valuable it is to fantasy, if we don't have it, it's just like everything else. It's a new normal with everything we have to do. We did a football season where they didn't have rookie camps and they didn't have training camps and they didn't have their preseasons the same way. But we adjusted and we're able to do it. So I'm sure that these guys will figure out a way to still get the information and do the stuff however they need to do. And then us as analysts and fans and whatever will process the information however they give it to us,
Yeah.
And whether it's sad or not, but I think everything is sad when it comes to all this stuff that we don't get to go. Listen, I don't think that there's anything as bad as not getting to go to the NFL draft in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
That's what we were supposed to do last
Wow,
year. We were supposed to be in Las Vegas and that didn't happen. That to me is like one of the toppers of what we missed. I think it'll all work out fine for everybody. It'll just have to be a new way of doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Miguel Shapton is a friend of ours. He mentioned this. As long as we can get 40 times and 3 cone times and get the numbers, we don't care about the actual combine as long as we can get the numbers. What are your thoughts, Ryan, on no combine? I know you're a big combine guy. You like watching it.
I don't take a ton of stock in the combine, but I love the combine because there's nothing more exciting than sitting at your office desk at work and staring at your phone and seeing somebody with 9.5-inch hands and thinking, wow, he's got baby hands. All these gets in it 40 times. It's so exciting at the end of the day. I love it. But you know what? We're gonna get this every day now because there's gonna be a pro day essentially every day for 2 months. Because they're gonna have to spread them out because they're talking to make it official this year. They're going to send people to each location.
Yeah.
So you might see bigger pro days. You got the smaller schools might buddy up with the guys with bigger ones. It sucks for kind of comparing them all at once, and you'll always have that little bit of a doubt when you get the numbers, but it can prolong the experience and make it fun.
I think also the people that are evaluating the information will have a different way of looking at it as well. So sometimes where some of these guys maybe didn't get to be seen because of the way it was always run, now that we have to do it a different way, it makes the evaluators have to do it a different way too. And maybe somebody that wasn't usually seen will get to be seen this time, Yeah.
That's a good point because, a lot of times we talk about the guys that didn't get invited. He didn't get invited. Everyone wanted to see him. He didn't get invited. Well, now pretty much everyone's going to be invited to some extent.
Yeah, and you can't tell me you can't get an accurate 40 time when we can watch NFL films, next-gen stats, and you see that on a cut, somebody went 17.2 miles per hour.
Exactly.
They're from the ultimate right.
Exactly, yeah, with today's
it's
technology.
Like information overload,
Yep, definitely.
Yes.
All right, let's get to some of these teams that just got eliminated from the playoffs. I'm sure Ryan's going to love this segment of the show here. I didn't put the Ravens first for that particular reason. I started out here with the Browns going away. And the biggest question for the Browns, Michael, is OBJ and what they do with OBJ this offseason. Do you think he's a Brown? Do you think he goes somewhere else? What do you think is going to happen there in Cleveland?
That's another one of those type of things where we're going into this time frame where we don't know what's going to happen with anybody. And the fact that he's such good friends with Jarvis Landry and all that kind of stuff, that was the whole talk of why he even came there in the first place. And I don't know. I think they have a lot of weapons there. They've got a lot of guys, but I don't know that you want to just let him go. I think he'll still be there. On our show, Jeremy is the resident Browns fan because he lives in Ohio and that's his team. And we talked about it one time, and he doesn't believe that he's going anywhere. So it's another one of those things where he talks a lot, OBJ, and he says a lot of things, but in the end,
yeah. If you look at his salary, he gets paid $15 million this year, and he's a $12 million cap hit. Next year, he is paid just a little bit less at $13 million. He's actually paid 15 next year, but he's a $0 cap hit. So one more year in Cleveland makes sense. If you're going to just say $3,000 to get rid of his $3 million to get rid of his talent, it's not worth it now. But if you wait a year, it makes sense.
Yep, that's a good point.
It's funny too, because a lot of times when I talk about this stuff, especially going back to watching it as long as I do, I just do it off the top of my head, visual history, what happens, without looking at some of those statistics like you just said. And it's just kind of cool that my idea of what I said fit the statistics.
Fit the narrative. There you go. Definitely. All right. In the effort of time, we'll just kind of go every other here. So Ravens, Ryan, I'm going to give you the Ravens here. They need a wide receiver one this offseason. Are they drafting one?
Yeah.
Are they going out to get one in free agency? What are they doing at the receiver position here?
So right now, it's what makes sense for them and the best decision for them is to get one in free agency. They haven't had a great track record of developing receivers. Hollywood Brown's fine, but he's not that. And there's a few free agents out there. I don't think a Galladay or Godwin's going to happen. I'd like someone, possibly Corey Davis, I think, is in the price range and can produce. He may not be a true alpha, but his skill set's a really good complement to what Hollywood Brown is because he's that big body threat. Juju, somebody I've thought about, which disgusts me, but he just because of the rivalry, but he fits the role of what they're looking for. So I could see something like that happen.
What about Julio?
Draft-wise,
what about Julio? What about Julio?
Trade a third for Julio, maybe. I'd be okay with that. He could give you a year or two production because they've always gotten old receivers. Anquan Bolden, who Harbaugh brought up in the press conference today, Derek Mason, Steve Smith, all were in their twilight and had a few good years in Baltimore. Makes me fear Marvin Jones could be one of the options too, which I'll pretend to be happy about when it happens. Still have that little bit of doubt in my mind. But if he's healthy, he's still good at his role. But I want somebody there who can actually help Lamar out, who he can just throw it up to and trust him and not hesitate.
Yep, good point.
And don't you have what? You have the 27th pick, right? Or the 26th pick, something like that?
27th, yeah, you're right. Or 26th. You're right, 26th.
Something like that, yeah. But so do you think they would be looking at one of those wide receivers all the way down there, 27, 26?
I mean, there could be. There's a couple. Like I love Rashad Bateman. I think he could be there. I think he's a good fit for what they do. Terence Marshall, maybe if they traded back a couple spots. He's another 6'3" physical receiver. They need somebody who fits that mold.
Yeah.
But they're also losing 5 edge rushers, and that's due to free agency. And that's something that you have to get earlier in drafts, especially when this draft's a little bit deeper.
Yep, good point.
I think it's funny as a Steelers fan, as a Ravens fan that you mentioned Juju, like a Steeler going over to the Ravens. There'd be a lot of controversy and a lot of fan reaction both ways.
Yep.
Rod Woodson won a Super Bowl with Baltimore.
That's true.
He's an all-time Steeler great.
That's true. Good point.
My friend is a huge Steelers fan, and I know his head would explode if Juju went to the Ravens.
That's awesome.
I wouldn't hear the end of it because I've been talking so bad about him for so long. But
yeah, Ryan is not a big fan of Juju. At least he wasn't this year for sure. All right, let's move over to the Saints, and of course the big story there is, will Drew Brees retire? Let's just assume that he retires. Michael, what happens to the Michael Thomases and the Alvin Kamaras, and who is the quarterback there? Is it Jameis Winston? Does he re-sign? Is it Taysom Hill? Like, what's going on there?
Well, I'm just laughing because that's a big topic on our show all the time. Because living down here in South Florida, I've been a Dolphins fan my whole life. I'm 52 years old, but my second team has been the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I love Mike Evans. I go to Bucs games, stuff like that. So I liked the Bucs, and I had Winston on like so many of my teams. And then the whole Brady thing happened, and Winston went over to New Orleans, and I really thought that if anything happened to Drew, Winston would take over. I really thought that that's what would happen. And then something happens to him, and then they go with Taysom Hill. And I wasn't really thrilled. I understand all the stories saying they needed to see what they had in him. They paid money for him, all this kind of stuff. But as a Kamara owner, which I have Kamara everywhere as well, I hated having Taysom Hill as the starting quarterback there. I just hated it. And look, I would never say anything personal about a person. I don't know Taysom Hill from Adam. He may be the greatest guy ever, but unfortunately I did tweet some things a lot of times saying I hate Taysom Hill, but it was because he was stealing all my stuff from Kamara. So I would assume, like you say, Breeze is gone. And I just don't understand how it didn't end up being Winston.
Yeah.
I really thought it was going to. I mean, and they didn't even give him a chance, So there's something there that they believe that they didn't want to, that they wanted the Taysom part. So if it goes along the way they did that, it would seem to me that they would go with Taysom, but I just can't imagine him being the starting quarterback for that team.
Yeah.
And if they do, I don't know what would happen with Winston. I don't know if he'll go somewhere else. Again, it's just like the Colts. It's just like all the other stuff. We have the next bunch of months to see what happens with all these guys. But I do believe that Breeze is gone. And if you ask my opinion, I want it to be Winston. I do, yeah. But I don't know that it will.
I may have an autographed Winston jersey on the wall.
Oh my God, I have so much autographed Winston stuff. It's
amongst
crazy.
all that Steelers stuff, he's got a Jameis Winston jersey somewhere up there.
Hey,
and a Marino autograph, yeah.
Hey, I got Mike Evans' rookie combine badge autographed by him sitting there behind my head.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Nice. That is awesome. That's awesome. All right, we got one last team, Ryan. We're going to go to the Rams, and I'm hearing some rumors about Jared Goff and Sean McVay sort of having some issues here, some marriage counseling type issues. I don't think either one of them will be gone next year, obviously, but what are your thoughts on this and kind of what it's going to do to this offense?
My thoughts are that they need to make it work because Jared Goff may have the only contract on the planet worse than Carson Wentz's.
Yeah.
So he's due $27 million next year. His dead cap is $65 million. So his dead cap is almost double, or actually more than double. If he decides to stay in 22, it's $25 million in salary or $30 million in dead cap. So he's got to tough it out for 2 more years and make this work because it's zero chance he's gone.
Yeah, it's crazy how this has kind of fallen apart. I mean, just a couple years ago, they were in the Super Bowl, and McVay is the genius offensive mind, and all of a sudden now they're having these issues, and Todd Gurley kind of falls apart and goes somewhere else, and it's just it's been rough to watch. But yeah, I think they just got to figure out a way to make it work. They're going to have to. I mean, they're not going to get rid of either one of those two guys. I think they're both under contract, and I think McVay's a good coach, so I think that they'll be around there for a little while. Just figure it out. What was that, Michael?
And they probably will have probably have the marriage counseling that you said. Oh no, I just said when you said Todd Gurley.
Oh yeah.
And that kind of wraps back to the beginning of the show. There was a moment there where Todd Gurley was it, and you were like, "Hey, we finally have another set it and forget it running back." And then all of a sudden, you don't have a set it and forget it running back.
Yep.
So I know that we have some trades that you were going to talk about later, and I just always find myself running backs have always been the favorite position that I liked, but it's just so hard now to trust them and to do trades for them,
Yep, agreed 100%. All right, guys, let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we are going to do a quick one-round rookie mock, just the top 12 guys there, and then like Michael said, we'll get to some listener trade questions, so hold tight. We'll be right back.
Experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports and esports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive's game concept revolves around player props, which are simple over-unders on player stats. There are contests for traditional sports including the NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, and cricket, as well as esports titles including CSGO, Dota 2, League of Legends, and more coming soon. Here's how to play. Choose your lineup of over-unders for top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Each prop has a fantasy point total based on how likely it is to hit. The more points the selection is worth, the riskier it is. rack up the most points, and win a share of the prize pool. Thrive is awarded over $2 million in cash, so come and prop up today.
All right, guys, welcome back, and be sure to use our promo code Armchair when you sign up for Thrive Fantasy. I'm here with Ryan and Michael, and we are about to do a first-round rookie mock draft. It's actually my second one of the year that I've done on a podcast, my first one on this show. So let's go ahead and get to that.
Attention, everyone. Let's mock draft.
All right, so we typically give the guests on the show the 101. So, Michael, you are up. This is going to be a one-quarterback league, PPR, obviously. So, who is your 101, Michael?
Oh, wow. Okay, you said you this is your second. This is my second one as well. We did one on our show for our Patreons, but we did a super flex. So when you're doing a super flex, it's totally a little different than a one quarterback. So with the super flex, we went Trevor Lawrence there at number one. But I think with a one quarterback league, without knowing what my team is, I would have to go Najee Harris. I'd have to go the running back. Even though we make those comments about stud running backs and all that stuff, it's still hard to get one. And if I'm not going to know what kind of team I have, maybe I have a team that doesn't even have a quarterback, then I'd probably go quarterback. But I'm assuming that my team has a quarterback, so I'd go with the running back here at number one.
Yeah, it's funny because I had Travis Etienne as my 101 for the longest time up until just recently. I'm grinding tape, and I text Ryan, I think it's Najee Harris. Just watching him on tape, I just think he's a better running back overall. So, yeah, I think Etienne's still a great running back, but I just like Najee Harris a lot more. So, yeah, I think he's the 101 for me as well. Ryan, you got the 102?
Pick Jamar Chase. He's an absolute stud. I know it's 2 years ago since we've seen him play, but he won the Biletnikoff. He was unstoppable as a young receiver. He wins the catch point. He wins deep. He beats up corners in press coverage. He's the closest thing this draft has to an elite wide receiver talent. And I don't want to throw him that around, but he's really close to being that. And I think he can be an instant impact guy.
Yeah, I love it. I think he's one of those guys that could you plug him in and he's going to be a stud forever. What would you say, Michael?
He'd have been my wide receiver one last year too.
And the reason I laughed, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but even in Superflex tight end premium mock that we did on our show, Shane actually took Jamar Chase with the 102 as well.
Wow.
He didn't take a quarterback. He believed that would be his 1.02, and he even thought he might take him at 101, even in a Superflex.
Wow, that's impressive.
Stud.
I should have gotten Shane. We did a live Twitter debate. We do these live Twitter debates where we get two writers together. We have a topic and then we talk about it. And the Twitter debate was Jamar Chase is the 101. And Shane would have come to the defense of the guy who got pretty much poo-pooed by everybody else on Twitter. Yeah, he got smashed, but I should have got Shane involved. Maybe he would have been a little bit to help him out there because he was. Everyone was saying it was Najee Harris for sure. They weren't even on to Jamar Chase at all.
Yeah, we had Scott Barrett on our show from Fantasy Points, and he did the mock with us on our Patreon show, the HQ Crew. So if anybody's interested in hearing that, come over and join our Patreon. We did it actually last night. It was last night we did and it dropped last night. Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, so I'm up at the 103. It's a pretty easy decision for me here. I know I poo-pooed Etienne on a 101 there, but, he's still an electric running back. He's still probably the next best guy. I think Harris and Etienne are in that tier 1 in running backs. And I'm a guy that drafts running backs in the first round of rookie drafts pretty much every year. So it's Travis Etienne for me. I mean, you all know this guy is great. He's electric. He's super fast. He's probably going to run sub 4.4 at the quote-unquote virtual combine, I'm sure. So, yeah, Etienne at the 103. Back to you, Michael, at the 104.
And it's funny. I am now in that mindset that everything is super flex, that quarterbacks are so valuable, And to me, Trevor Lawrence seems to be the guy that in this draft class, you would want this guy as your quarterback. There's a couple other wide receivers and some running backs. And if this was tight end premium. There's even a tight end that people are talking about in the first round. But I think here at 104, again, without knowing what team I have, I think I would go with Trevor Lawrence. Or if this was a real draft, I'd try to trade back. Maybe there's a team that needed one or something, and I would try to trade. But for here, I'll take Trevor Lawrence at 104.
All right, yeah, I like it. And yeah, I think trading back is what I've heard a lot at the 104 in one quarterback leagues. Is that's kind of where you missed out on the Harris, you missed out on the ETN, you missed out on Chase, and then that fourth pick, you're kind of like you can go a different direction there. So you can probably trade back and still get your guy. Ryan,
exactly, 100%.
Ryan, you got the 105.
Yeah, I think the 105, I like the idea of trading back here. It's probably the last guy who'd be on the board who I wouldn't trade back because I'd want to grab. That's Jaylen Waddle. He got overshadowed a lot this year because Devontae Smith was obviously the Heisman winner and just electric. But I think Waddle, when he's been on the field with them, he's absolutely shined. He's another receiver who does a little bit of everything well. He's well-rounded, but he also has breakneck speed and big play potential. I think he can be a 1A, 1B type wide receiver in the NFL. And again, the guy who right away can produce and has a ton of upside.
I love it. All right, I'm up at the 106, and I've said this on the show quite often. I don't watch a lot of college football. I do most of my tape grinding after the season is done, and I haven't got to the receivers yet, but I did see Devontae Smith in the championship game, and he broke a record basically at halftime. So I'm going to go Devontae Smith here, the other receiver from Alabama, obviously. He just looks like a beast. I know there's a talk about his weight. He's a little bit smaller. I think he's 170, 175. He's a little bit thinner, but he's been compared a little bit to the name just escaped me, Marvin Harrison a little bit too, and he was kind of a smaller guy as well. So I think Devontae Smith is going to be my pick here at the 106. Michael, 107.
All right, so I was going to take Smith. That's where I was looking at. I want to do something, and in real life, I probably would never do this.
I know.
But even after last night, I could see Ryan's face. But even after last night's show last night, we had, like I said, we had Scott Barrett on there, and he actually took Kyle Pitts right here at this pick at this spot. And what was amazing, and I asked him to elaborate on it, is he called him a Hall of Fame type tight end.
Wow.
And I was like, this kid he hasn't even stepped into the NFL. And his belief and the way he promoted it with us was that he's one of those kind of guys that really transcends that position. And that's what he believes. Again, like you, Jeff, I haven't done all the research with these guys that much as well. And so I'm going based on what experts and other people say. And the way he sold it last night and the way he said it, he said that no question he would take him in the first round. And like I said, he took him at this spot. So nice. Normally, I would hate to take a tight end in the first round, but maybe I would do that in this type of draft, especially since it's not super flex.
Yep.
And I love Ryan's face, so
I was so mad
because Ryan wanted him at the 108.
Last time you talked, you're like, "Oh, definitely not taking a tight end here." I'm like, "Oh, cool. I have my next pickup, my next hot point, easy peasy." As soon as you're like, "I'm going different," I'm like, "You son of a bitch."
That's awesome.
I saw your face; it was great. Sorry.
Good stuff. Yeah, it's funny because the one mock that I've done previous to this, I think Kyle Pitts went at this spot as well. So maybe it's just where he's going to go because I think it was Marco actually going for 2 zone. Marco took Kyle Pitts and basically said he's a receiver and playing tight end, so he's going to be one of those guys that are going to put up those kind of numbers for you. So yeah, great pick there, Ryan. So since you got sniped, you got the 108.
It gets real murky right here. Real murky. I'm between two guys. I'm going to go with Javontae Williams, though, the running back from UNC. I think his skill set.
I hate you, Ryan.
Is the closest to being an all-purpose back and getting that 60% of the market share. He's a monster. He's 5'10", 220. I'm sorry. So he runs through tackles. He runs a ton of power. He has good enough speed to break long runs. And he showed some receiving flashes on the upside there. So I like everything he brings to the table, and I think he's somebody who could be an impact player.
Ryan, I hate you, man. I just did a write-up on him. He's one of the guys that I actually watched tape on, and I'm excited about him. I think my player comp for him was Nick Chubb. A less elusive Nick
Ooh.
Chubb. Nick Chubb's pretty elusive, but this guy's he's the real deal. I think he's going to be a great running back in the league. I was hoping to get him at this pick here. Since Ryan sniped him for me, I'm scrambling now to try to find out my next guy on my list. And it looks like it's going to be Rondell Moore, receiver from Purdue. I haven't watched much tape on this guy, honestly. I'm going strictly on what the experts are saying right now. But he's one of those top prospects that could be the Justin Jefferson of this kind of class. I think he can be that guy where you're going to get him a little bit later than those highly touted guys. And if he gets to the right landing spot, can be a receiver that you can count on for the rest of his career. So yeah, Rondell Moore is my pick here at the what am we at? The 109. Michael, you're at the 110.
All right. One of the things that we always talk about with these mocks, especially when there's three of us, we're drafting teams that are not the same team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the person that I took with 1 is not on the same team that I took at 4, not on the same team that I took at 7. Okay. So then if you're talking about value, whether it's a super flex or not, you've got Justin Fields still there, and there's a lot of people that are taking him over Trevor Lawrence,
Good point.
And I took Trevor Lawrence all the way up there. So sitting here at the 110, especially after Ryan says, there's a lot of murkiness here of what you're going to do. And look, I don't know about you guys. We're in a league called the DFB with Matthew Berry and Scott Barrett and some of these other guys, and a bunch of people from Sirius and stuff, and we do the rookie draft prior to the rookie draft, real NFL rookie draft. Most other leagues I'm in, it's always after the rookie draft.
Yep.
So you know where these players go, So it makes it a lot more difficult to try to draft before the real rookie draft. So even these kind of mocks that we're doing, it's before the real rookie draft. But it seems to me, especially if some people are even saying he might be the 1.01 for a quarterback, at 110, I would have to do it.
Definitely
and again,
value.
like Ryan, we said before, I would probably trade back maybe or something like that. But for here, that's what I'll do. I'll take Fields.
Yeah, I love that value right there because you're right. I mean, he has talked about as potentially being the 101 in Superflex leagues over Trevor Lawrence. So yeah, that's a good point there. Ryan, you're up at the 111. Do not snipe me, you bastard.
Jeff, I think you should know who I'm going to take. Here's Rashad Bateman. That's not your guy?
Nope. Thankfully not.
I think out of the receivers left, I think he has the most potential of being a top 12 receiver in the league. He has the size at 6'1", 210. He has a great vertical game. He tracks the ball well. These in screens. He runs intermediate routes. He's well-rounded. As I said, he has a complete skill set. I think right landing spot situation, he has the opportunity to be the team's lead receiver because the talent's there. It's just we've seen it in Minnesota where it hasn't been. It's been either overshadowed with Tyler Johnson last year and shared the receiving core with him. So he's got a ton of talent. When I watched Tyler Johnson, who's Bucks now, I couldn't even pay attention to him because of how good Rashad Bateman was. I love the talent, and I think he has a ton of potential.
I love it. I love that pick there. All right, I'm at the 112. I'll wrap it up here. So this year's one of this year's good rookies, the big thing coming into last year was that he had very few touches in his college career, and the guy that I'm about to take is the reason he had so few touches. Kenneth Gainwell, running back from Memphis. Of course, it was Antonio Gibson that came into the league last year and kind of played really well and kind of filled that sort of lead role for the Washington football team. Kenneth Gainwell is not built quite the same as Gibson is. He's more of a receiving type back. He can split out in the slot, but he's also a smaller guy, but he's super quick, super fast. So Gainwell, I think in the PPR league is going to be a monster, and to get him at the 112 is definitely a value for me because running backs I think mean a lot, especially when you can get them young. So Kenneth Gainwell is my pick at the 112. All right. Anything
Can I
else?
ask you something though, Ryan? Jeff said that this is his second mock. Have you done any mocks yet, or is this your first time?
I've done some mocks, just not on a podcast yet. We've been running them over at the Draft Bible.
Yeah.
So we're running 4-round rookie mocks on those right now.
So do you guys find that there's a big despair? Like after, like we were saying before, 104, but in these later rounds, are you guys seeing the same people showing up in like say 7 through 12, or is it just a totally different type of thing?
So the one I have it in front of me because I did for the player sheets off it. I saw Terence Marshall go with 1.06 in that one, which is the only one that's really different. They had Olive, but this was before he said he was staying in college. But there's been a few. Rondell Moore, you've seen multiple spots. I've seen him everywhere from the 104 to the 111. Pitts has been at the lower end of it, right around where he took him. There's been a ton of difference. I've seen some Chuba Hubbard in the first round.
Yeah.
Depending on who likes him.
The one
right around here, it's pretty consistent. Once you hit that mid-second is where I've seen the biggest changes.
Yeah.
Sure. And that'll go all the way to the draft. You'll still see changes once you get deeper into those drafts. But I was just wondering, because last night when we did that with Scott, he was saying that he was seeing a lot when you get into that later first round. But then what it kind of meant for us is we were telling people, we've talked for a while about trading picks and trading for picks and stuff. And we were finding that there's a lot of value in that later first round than we thought previously there was going to be. Yeah. And that was why I was asking, like, how much of a difference you're seeing, but a lot of people didn't realize, especially in Superflex, you're able to get some really good players at the end of that first round.
Yep.
So that's what I was wondering what you were seeing.
So we've been keeping ADP for it, and we drafted really close to the ADP. Like our first round was all the same except for Marshall.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Marshall was the one.
Gainwell was 202.
Yeah, Marshall was the one guy in my mock that went a little bit different. Now, we did do a super flex, but we still only had the two quarterbacks go like we did tonight with Fields and Lawrence. So basically the same guys went in my super flex mock as went tonight too. So I think right now those top 12, 13-ish are probably about the same, but I think it's gonna change quite a bit here. When we start getting some of these 40 times and all this news starts coming out, I think it'll change drastically like it always does every year.
In your ADP mocks, are you seeing Jamar Chase go as high as you took him and Shane took him?
Jamar Chase right now is the 1.03.
Okay, 103.
Yeah, so it's Harris, Etienne, Chase, Smith, Waddle, Moore.
Good stuff. All right, well, speaking of trading back, let's go ahead and segue right into some listener trades that I got here. We got quite a few. We won't get to all of them, but I'll do this first one right here because it is kind of involving some picks. And Michael, I'll go to you on this one. So the trade is he's going to either keep the picks. I guess these are all first-round picks, 110, 111, and 112. I guess 3 first-round picks, or keep CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who had a kind of an off rookie season. What is your thoughts on this trade here?
Again, when we talk about these trades on our show, we try to ask people to give as much information as they can.
Yeah, very vague.
So without knowing what this guy has, does he have running backs? Does he need running backs? Does he have quarterbacks? I don't know what he has. So if you're just going to go in a vacuum, again, we just talked about the value that you're getting in the later rounds. Yep. I don't know if this is a super flex or not a super flex, but to me, I would actually rather have the 10, 11, and 12. No matter how much I love running backs, like we just said with Gurley, I loved him. He was awesome. All of a sudden, he wasn't anymore.
Yep.
And then somebody like CMC, he's amazing. He's great. He gets hurt. He doesn't play. Your team's in a lot of trouble from one guy. So it seems like a lot for me to give up 3 first-round picks. Some people may not agree. If this was in season, no question I would do it 100% because I don't care about picks during the season.
Yeah.
But now that we're going into the draft season, I would rather have the 3 picks right now. And who knows what I could get. And the closer the draft comes, who knows what I could get for number 10, number 11, 12. Or even during the draft, who knows what I could get. So I would stick with the picks right now.
Yeah.
I always tell people that the draft picks right now, as they get closer to the draft, they increase value. People get more and more excited about these guys. The more they learn about them, they get excited. That 10, 11, 12 can probably get you CAEH plus by the time you get to the draft.
100%.
Yep.
I mean, that could land you Kyle Pitts, Trevor Lawrence, Sean Bateman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
If you put the names to the numbers,
that
trade looks a lot different.
Yep, 100% agree. All right, Ryan.
We talk about that on the show too. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you, but I was going to say there's those pockets of time throughout 65-day year. There's pockets of time when picks are more valuable, players are more valuable. When you're in season and you're playing the games, screw that. I want the player that I can put out there and win the game. But the moment, like Ryan said, we're done with fantasy football, we're done with most of the playoffs. Now, those players don't mean anything because I have 9 months to get that player back if I needed to. So give me some picks, man. I would rather have the picks.
Agree 100%. All right, Ryan, yours is a little bit more in depth here. So let's go 10-man PPR Superflex, no tight end premium. The trade offer is he's going to receive Amari Cooper, Hunter Henry, the 107, the 110, and the 406. And that's a lot. So Cooper, Henry, the 710, and 406. For Tyreek Hill, Gesicki, and a second round, so 205. Which side are you on this one?
Oof. So, with being a 10-man, your roster's so deep, there's so much talent on there. I'm going to lean towards probably the more elite player. Henry and Gesicki kind of cancel each other out. They're both fine. Like, they're going to be low to mid tight end 2s. Or tight end 1s, I'm sorry. So, I mean, they're okay. So now you're looking at Tyreek Hill in a second for Cooper and 2 firsts. The 4th is just a toss in to make it look pretty. I think I'm still sticking with Hill just because of the fact he's so elite and he can win me a week at any given time. That's why I'm leaning that side. And I said, out of those 2 tight ends, Gesicki's a little younger. But the main factor is I want the best player in the trade, especially if something that close. And Tyreek Hill still, the both receivers are young, but Hill's just amazing. And he's their wide receiver 1.
Yeah. See,
hands down.
I think I'm on the opposite side of the fence here. I think, what I usually do, I kind of line them up. I look at them player for player. So Cooper and Hill, yes, Hill is his better. So I'm going to give Hill the slight advantage there. Like you mentioned, Henry and Gesicki kind of cancel each other out. But Hill's not that much better where basically I'm getting getting 2 firsts for that second round pick. That's kind of how I look at it. Mari Cooper and Hill are both receiver 1s. Hunter Henry, Gesicki, both tight end 1s. But then I'm getting a 107, the 110, and the 406 for a second round pick. So I'd prefer that side. What are your thoughts, Michael?
Okay, I'm going to be the Micheal Cipes in the Dynasty Trades HQ thing because this happens a lot. Shane will have one side, Jeremy will have another, and then I'll come in. You know what's funny? In a vacuum, looking at it the way you just looked at it, Jeff, I agree. That was my first thought. However, when I looked at the roster he has, because like we said, he gave the information. This is a 10-team league, and pretty much his only wide receiver is DK. I see that he has Julio, but we already know what's going on with Julio. We know what's going on with Deontay. So if this is a 10-team league, and that's the best he has to roll out, I might agree with Ryan here, and I would want Tyreek Hill because he's going right into your starting lineup. I get that you're getting those extra rookie picks, but those extra rookie picks are probably not going to help you right now.
Yep.
And he really needs help at wide receiver. So I hate's a strong word, but I'm not a fan of Tyreek Hill. Not his ability, just the off-field stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can't deny that when he's on the field, he's probably the best one in this deal. And really, then he would just sit there with DK and Tyreek Hill in his starting lineup. So normally I would go your side, Jeff, but I think here I'll go with Ryan.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
Out of the starting positions in a 10-team league, one guy averaging almost double-digit points more a game.
Yeah.
It's a big difference in a small league.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, too, because with a 10-team league, you would expect that there'd be 3 or 4 running backs wide receivers. There'd be like 3 or 4 wide receivers on this team that he would start it and not worry about it in a 10-team. But he doesn't. So I think in this sense, I would rather have the Hill part. Yeah.
I think because I was looking at the same receivers that he has. He says he got DK, JJ, and Deontay, and you took JJ as Julio Jones. I took JJ as Justin Jefferson. So that would probably sort of tip it the other direction if it was. I don't even know which one it is. So if it's Justin Jefferson,
well, that's different then.
Yeah.
If it's Justin Jefferson, then yeah. And not to take away from Julio, it's just like we say, it's the ending part of Julio and stuff. And I would want Hill, but you're right. If that's Justin Jefferson, but then again, there's no guarantee that Justin Jefferson's going to have the same amazing season in his second season than he did in his first. You know,
if you look at the ADP, that's wide receiver 1, 4, and 5, or 1, 3, and 5 in Dynasty ADP right now.
Yeah,
which is crazy. That's Justin Jefferson.
That is, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about DK, Justin Jefferson, and Hill is what you're talking about.
DK's 1, Justin Jefferson's 3, and Hill's 5 in ADP right now.
Wow.
Like, you're rolling out absurd receivers.
Yes.
So then you're right. Maybe you do that deal even if it is Justin Jefferson, and then you're right. You're starting 3 of the top 5 wide receivers every week in your starting lineup.
Yep, I love it. All right, we got time for maybe one more here, and I just saw Dan Turner just tuned into the show. He made a comment in the chat, so let's get to Dan Turner's trade here. I'll go to you, Michael, first on this one. So he gave up, and he didn't give any other information as far as I guess he didn't say Superflex League. So he gave up AJB, AJ Brown, Jalen Reagor, and the 105, and he got back CeeDee Lamb, Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, and Fournette in a Superflex League. What are your thoughts on that trade?
Well, first of all, you kind of froze when you were talking, so I missed part of what you said.
Okay, I'll give it to you again. A.J. Brown, Jalen Reagor in the 105 for CeeDee Lamb, Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, Leonard Fournette, and it's Superflex.
Okay, it is Superflex, and he doesn't explain it in this thing, but you said he's in the room. So if he's in the room, let's ask him. What other quarterbacks does he have? Because if he has no other quarterbacks, then obviously he has to do this. He'll get Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold, no matter what we think about them. If he has no quarterbacks, no matter how good those other guys are, he's getting 2 quarterbacks. It is so hard to get a quarterback in season in a Superflex if you don't have one.
Yep.
So, so if he doesn't have any, then I want that side. If he has legitimate quarterbacks, I'd rather have the other side. I mean, I'm a fan of Leonard Fournette, but, look what happened over there in Tampa. And I just don't know. Look, if he has other quarterbacks, then I want the other side. If he doesn't, then you got to go with the quarterbacks.
Gotcha. And he actually just chimed in. He's actually getting the other side. He's getting AJB and Reagor, and he says non-Superflex, but it clearly says Superflex League in his little thing here. So I don't know where Dan is right now. Dan's all over the place. Superflex.
Oh, Dan, I love you. This is the kind of stuff that happens on our show. We'll have all this stuff laid out, and then it'll be totally different. Shane will go, "Oh no, never mind, it's not." And that's exactly what just happened.
All right, so yeah, Dan, you screwed it up. You lost your opportunity there. Let's move on to one more trade here. Let's get one that actually has the information that we need. All right, Dan, this one's from Ronald McCarthy. Ryan, I'm gonna go to you. He traded away Dak and the 110 for D-Hop and looks like the 309 of this year. He got some other stuff in here too. Doesn't say Superflex though. He did say he overpaid for Josh Allen, traded away James Robinson, yada yada yada. But really, the brass tacks is here: DK and the 110 for D-Hop. I'm sorry, Dak Prescott and the 110 for D-Hop and a 3rd round pick.
It's all of it's a Superflex.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
Which we don't know. If this is Superflex, I'm taking the Dak side.
Yeah.
Easily. But if it's not, I want D-Hop.
But look what he says in there. If you read, I know Jeff said blah, 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 but he says that he already has Cousins and Burrow, and he overpaid for Allen.
Yeah.
So he's got 3 quarterbacks in Allen, Burrow, and Cousins already.
It's a good point.
Yeah, then I want the D-Hop side because
yeah, exactly.
D-Hop's still a top 5 wide receiver for 2 more years, and he's on an offense that's going to improve the longer it's together with the young quarterback. So I'm going D-Hop.
Yeah, good point.
So that's why the information matters. Really, if for people that are listening out here, when you guys send your trade offers to shows like this, the more information you give, the better analysis that people could give. And it's funny because Shane said something on the show yesterday. He goes, "Don't bog me down with all that information." And Jeremy and I just totally slammed him because, no, you want as much information as you can, because even Ryan just changed his thought once he got the information that was there. So you definitely give people as much information as you can.
Good point. And yeah, just, your Dynasty Trades HQ, you got that experience. I think this is the first time me and Ryan have done this trade segment before. I know we've had it before. People ask it in the chat and we kind of answer it on the fly, but this is the first time we've ever done a full trade segment. So it's a good point.
Fun.
It is. It is. As long as you get all the information.
Right above it on the show sheet, because I'm very interested in this trade because it's.
Which one is that?
It's a very recency bias. It's Derrick Henry or Zeke in a first. I know we don't know what the first is, which is the issue.
Exactly. 100%.
What if we assume it's a mid first?
Mid-round. So Derrick Henry or Zeke in a mid-first round pick. Michael, what are your thoughts on, in a vacuum if you don't know anything else besides that?
Well, in a vacuum, I mean, look, you're going to say you want to have Zeke in the first round pick, not knowing where it's at. But Derrick Henry, when he's out there, he's freaking amazing too. So I just don't know. And I can see why Ryan brings it up. Especially now, what is this? This is January 20th. The person that sent this to you, I don't know, it says 2 hours ago, he's got to know where that pick is. There's got to be more information here to do than just what's right there. Again, we talked about running backs. Derrick Henry's amazing, but there could be a week where he's not. Zeke was amazing, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. So it's so hard to do a trade that's all just centered around one specific running back. So I want two pieces. Give me Zeke and a first.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. I
think the 112. Who the hell knows?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, Zeke with Dak back next year, which we're assuming Dak's going to be back. You can't let a franchise quarterback walk. He could be bounced back like that.
Exactly.
Because with the hodgepodge of quarterbacks they had together, you just put 8 in the box and try to have – who's the quarterback by the end of the year? I can't even remember his name. Else rolled out there from – Wisconsin Southern Community College.
That had never played before.
Yep.
That was just first game.
High school down the street. That's his name. I couldn't think of it, but he gives no fear to the passing game. If Dak's there, that opens everything up for Zeke, and he could easily compete with Derrick Henry. They're similar ages. Actually, I think Zeke's younger.
Yeah.
But the other thing, too, is, again, we're in January. The draft isn't till April. That first-round pick is just going to get more and more and more and more valuable, And who knows? You could maybe even trade that first-round pick going into the draft for another running back. So then you're talking about Zeke plus for Derrick Henry. So you could be taking 2 running backs for 1 running back.
Yep.
So
good point.
It seems that would be the answer.
Yeah, and I had someone in one of my chats talking about Dak Prescott, and I didn't fact check this, so this might not be accurate, but he said that Ezekiel Elliott had 5 RB1 games this year, and 3 of them were with Dak. So that tells you right there that Zeke can get back to being a top running back if Dak is back.
I don't know if that stat's true, but I believe that's stat. That sounds accurate.
Yep.
Because running quarterbacks help running backs. And 2, Dak does everything, and that makes that offense so potent. It's a 30-point-a-game offense when he's there, especially with those receivers. And he's going to get so many red zone attempts.
All right, let's get to our last segment of the night, the Forgotten Fantasy Player.
Get ready for GoingFor2.com's Forgotten Fantasy Player of the Week.
All right, Michael, you got to come strong here because we had one last week. We've been doing this segment now for over 2 years, and we've pretty much heard most of these guys. But the one we had last week, me and Ryan had to look him up because it was that obscure. So let's see who you got for your Forgotten Fantasy Player.
I didn't know you wanted me to go obscure because the way you wrote it, where you said somebody that's retired that was important to you from a long time ago, and I was thinking more along the 90s when I was playing fantasy football. That's where I was going.
That's fun. Hey, most of our audience is in the 20s, so the 90s is very obscure to them.
But for me, based on what you wrote to me, I was thinking about it. And like I said, I've played for a long time, but I'm a Dolphins fan. I've lived here my whole life. I love the Dolphins. But part of the reason I got into fantasy football was because they were so bad around that time. And I would get so angry and I would be so pissed off when they'd lose. And I just, I'm with my wife 30 years, where we've got another year and we'll be married 30 years. So she couldn't stand that I watch the Dolphins because I get so upset. So I went into fantasy. And for me, one of the cool things I liked about fantasy was I would get the players' autographs of the players that I had studs of. And back then, as a Dolphins fan, it was really bad, but I had Patriots on my team, and I had Drew Bledsoe and Curtis Martin. I had those two guys, and they won me leagues, and I was cheering for Patriots, and I had an autographed picture of the two of them together on my wall in a Dolphins house, and so I was trying to kind of think of somebody like that. I thought that's what you were asking me when you asked me that text.
We leave it open for just, for whatever you think is your forgotten player. We don't really narrow it down. We had one last week that me and Ryan had not heard yet, so that's why I mentioned that. But it's kind of up to your thought of a forgotten fantasy player.
Well, because it was fun. He was great. Drew Bledsoe was great for me back then. Curtis Martin was awesome for me. And then all of a sudden, something happens. He gets hurt. Tom Brady comes in, and it's history. It's never Drew ever again. You never see him again. You don't think about him in fantasy or whatever. But when he was my quarterback in fantasy, he was great. And it was always a conflict for me as a Dolphins fan to have to cheer for Patriots. But to me, for whatever reason, that was like one of the things that popped into my head when you asked me that question in the group chat. So
no, that's perfect. I mean, that's definitely going back to the '90s is definitely And like I said, I usually leave it open-ended as far as, what you think your forgotten fantasy player is. The one we had last week, the player actually only had 2 good games his entire career. Whole career.
Oh my gosh.
But it was the playoff game to get to the championship game and the championship game, and that was it. And he won his league based on those 2 games. And that guy was never heard from again. Ryan,
who was it?
I'm trying to remember too. The whole time I've been trying to remember his name.
I can't remember his name.
It was Pittsburgh, wasn't it?
Sorry. Huh?
Wasn't it? Was it a Pittsburgh player?
It was Khalil Bell.
Khalil Bell. There it is.
Yeah. He had he did the math. He had 60% of his career yards in those 2 games, or something ridiculous like that.
Well, the funny thing for me, like we said on the show, we joke about it. Shane jokes about it, me being old all the time. So I forget a lot of this stuff. And a lot of times I'll win a league and the next year I'll be doing something. But my friend Greg, Dynasty Greg, he's a Steelers fan. He remembers every single detail, every single play, every single thing that's happened since we've been playing fantasy for the 90s. So when you sent me that message, that was my first call. I called him because I wanted to ask him. I was like, dude, you know all this shit. Who is somebody for me? But he didn't answer the phone. Oh. So when he didn't answer the phone, I had to go with my memory of what I can remember, and that's what I did.
Nice.
But I'm sure there's some players that maybe won me 1 or 2 games here or there, but off the top of my head, I couldn't remember their names.
Yeah.
I used to love using them on Madden back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
so
they were
funny.
awesome.
Sorry.
It's funny you mentioned Dynasty Greg remembering everything, because one of our favorite guests that we have on, I think you know him too, John Lobb. Whenever we do the segment with him, he not only tells us about the player, he tells us about where he was when he watched this player. There I was in 1987, in the stands watching it. He remembers all that stuff. I don't know how the hell he remembers that stuff, but he does the same thing. He
remembers specific plays. I can't remember my line. She comes on and I just feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
It's so funny because Greg will do that. He will do that all the time. I'll be in a fantasy bowl and he goes, well, you beat him in week 17 2 years ago with that player. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no. And then he will say it and it'll be exactly correct what he's saying to me. It's amazing. It's like a savant type of thing when it comes to that.
Definitely. All right, guys, great show. Let's go around the room real quick. Give us your Twitter handle where we can find your show at. Micheal, we'll go to you first.
Well, like we said, you can find me on Twitter at FFBlitz. Also, with the podcast, I do Dynasty Trades HQ, so that's at Dynasty Trades HQ. I do it with my partners Shane and Jeremy, and then also I'm doing a new thing with at Pop Culture Blitz, where I'm doing a new show that's going to be, I've talked about football for so long. I want to talk about some other things. And like I said, I tour with my brother, Greg Cipes. He's the voice of Beast Boy on Teen Titans. So we tour and we do signings at conventions and everything. And I was supposed to do this new podcast this year, starting in February. And then coronavirus happened and I didn't get to go on tour. But once we're back on the road, I'm going to be doing that show live. So you can find that over at Pop Culture Blitz. But pretty much, like I said, Dynasty Trades HQ and FF Blitz.
Nice. Love it. Ryan?
Find me here every Wednesday night at Go for Two in the Armchair Fantasy Show. We're recording the War Room episodes next week, hopefully. Got pushed a little bit. Somebody had the sniffles.
Yes.
So we'll be doing that next week, and we'll release a whole bunch of them, recording the first 10 players. Then also find me at the Dynasty Draft Room podcast over the Draft Bible Network. Our huge announcement, I hope, is coming tomorrow, so I've been told. So be on the lookout for that as well.
All right. Good
Sweet.
stuff. Good stuff. All right, guys, as always, you can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. We got lots of things happening at Going for Two Live. Our podcast network is in full bloom. We had a great show the other night with Kyle Senra. He had Jay Mike Check on the show, an interview-style show. We also have Adam Rank coming up on one of our shows, one of our debate shows. So be on the lookout for that as well. Me and Ryan will be back here. I believe we're February 4th. I think we're going to have Andy Singleton on, fresh off his Senior Bowl trip. So that'll be a lot of fun. So
Awesome.
Definitely catch us there. For Ryan, for Michael, I'm Jeff. We will see you in 2 weeks.
Bye. Thanks.